Hey folks, back with another humongous video. This time we're looking at the Hanwei Antiqued Claymore. I'd like to begin this video by just saying, that's what she said. There, it's out there. You guys can feel free to insert it anywhere you like. Anyway, this is the largest sword I have ever put my hands on. It is the first great sword that I've really handled. It's been on my wish list for quite a while. I have wanted to have a sword this big in my collection. Since I started collecting, I've been daydreaming about this particular model. I've watched many YouTubers review it, and I'm fascinated over what it would be like. And I gotta say, it does not disappoint in any way, shape, or form. If anything, it exceeded my expectations practically every way that I could look at it. Where do we start? First of all, we have to show this sword in sections. There's no possible way without me getting a drone or something that I can show you this whole thing at once. Starting with the friendly end of it, it has a globe pommel. Beautifully executed, beautifully peened. I can't even turn it because it's going to go through my wall. But again, a solid piece, a gorgeous piece. It's destroying everything. That's what it does. It's got a brown wrapped leather handle. If I had to make one little nitpick, it's not very nicely finished. It's just kind of butted up against itself there. No real stitching or anything like that, but hey. It's got a very heavy, trying to bring it back to where I see it, a very heavy cross guard with some forward swept quillions with what they call quatrefoils, which is a very Scottish element. It is a Scottish greatsword, by the way, made famous in the movie Braveheart, though that one's quite a bit different than this model. Moving our way along, don't think I'm forgetting anything. I believe it's a wood core with a leather wrap, nicely finished, nicely mated to the quillion and the pommel. It has two languettes that extend from the quillion guard, from the cross guard up the blade. Those are also peened, but I presume a hole through the blade. There's a peen that runs right through here. Got my finger on it right now. There's a peen and a little stud that runs through there. Insanely good quality, I have to say. Has a fuller that terminates right here, quite a short fuller. And then it has an antiqued blade. And some more antiqued blade, and even more antique blade, and finally quite a sharp tip for a giant sword. We are looking at just the tip, but anyway, let me try and get this back on the stand all the way back over here. I'm back in an area where we can look at it and talk about it. It's a beast. A beast. By beast, I mean an overall length of 54 3/4 inches, practically 55 inches long. Blade length is 41 inches, practically sharpened to the hilt. I should mention as well that this sword was sharpened by Relics. Relics is a fantastic dealer in London, Ontario, who I've recently started in the last couple of months dealing with and have not been disappointed. Their shipping is amazing. Speaking of shipping from Relics, I would like to point out too that I don't name my swords. Let's start with that. I don't give my swords names. However, the day I ordered this, Wednesday of this week, as soon as I placed the order that morning, it clouded over and it started getting very stormy. It rained heavy, the winds started picking up, gusting in the 80s. I started looking on the Weather Channel and I realized Newfoundland had a hurricane passing offshore that was creating some serious storm events. And the first thing I think is, it's going to screw up the shipping. The plane's not going to be able to land. I'm not going to get my sword. It's going to be delayed because of the storm. So I was thinking, man, I should call it Stormbringer. But that was like, it's kind of close to Stormbreaker, which is Thor's axe in the Marvel movies, and it seemed a little silly. I was like, wait, what's the name of the hurricane? The hurricane that was passing by was Hurricane Franklin. And I remember the mailman came on Thursday morning on time with rain gear on, soaked in rain, bringing this gigantic box to my door. And he even goes, man, this is a big box, dude. I was like, Franklin it is. So may I introduce you to Franklin? Yeah. Anyway. Handle of blade length is 41 inches on Franklin. Franklin's handle length is 14 inches. That's a foot and 2 inches of handle. Point of balance is 7 inches from the guard. I'm not going at it. Trust Hanwei's website. The point of harmonics is 31 inches up the blade. I believe that's from the guard. The width at the guard is 1.78. Width at the tip, it kind of goes down to 1.28 inches at the tip. Thickness at the guard is 0.24. Distal taper brings it down to a thickness at the tip of 0.16 of an inch. Blade steel is Hanwei's 1566 steel that they use on a lot of their swords. HRC, or the hardness Rockwell, is shown as being 50 to 52. Specs will vary slightly from piece to piece. It doesn't say on Hanwei's site, but I believe Relics lists this sword as weighing 4 pounds 14 ounces. 2 ounces shy of 5 pounds. Let's say this is a 5 pound sword. I mentioned this. I mentioned this because I just took this sword out into the backyard for a cutting session at the stump. And yeah, it flubbed some cuts. I'm going to put in the almighty disclaimer. It did some amazing cuts on some heavy targets. It did some lousy cuts on some light targets. So go figure. I think it's me, not you, as my ex-girlfriend used to say to me. It's a beast, and it's the first great sword I've ever handled. So I'm pretty sure it's my shoddy technique on some of those paper cups. Once I get a little bit more practice with it, it is sharp. I gotta say, Relics did a fantastic job on sharpening this one. Wasn't such a great job that they did on the saber. Although I think their sharpening is what their sharpening is. I think it's more the geometry. The saber is a short blade with a wide apple seed. Then they put their edge on it. The geometry is not conducive. I laid it back a little more, which took a hell of a lot of work. It cut okay. This has a broad, thin blade, thinner than that. They put their sharpening on it. This thing cuts paper. It did some great cuts. And testament to Hanwei's Rockwell treating of that 5166. I whacked it into the stand once, and I actually hit the ground once. And I was very aware that this was the type of sword that you could drive into the ground very easily if you're not careful. In spite of my best efforts, I did nick the ground once. It did nothing to the blade. It almost struck oil. Anyway, let's take you out to the stump and show you the cutting session of the Hanwei Antiqued Claymore right now. This time, go big or go home. It is the Hanwei Antiqued Claymore. They're 0 for 3 on the McDonald's cups. Ooh. Finally.
Everything I've been trying not to do just happened and hit the ground. Nothing. It did nothing. Hurt the ground. Not bad. Just about. More umpa. That's better. Haven't cut one in a long while. Let's see how this goes. Not to make excuses, but I think I'm starting to show my fatigue more than the blades sharpening or anything. Last one. Come on, baby. Got a fairly big slash, but
there you go. Hope you enjoyed that. That was some of the biggest targets. I've been saving them up specifically for Franklin. Some of the biggest targets I've done. Those coffee creamer ones that I saved for the end are no joke. If I had it to do again, I think I would have done those earlier in the session because I think part of it was my fatigue starting to show up. I was in between cuts while I was loading up the next targets. I was holding it with this hand against my hip, but still bearing the 5-pound weight with this hand, then cutting with this hand as my lead hand. Obviously, I'm right-handed. Holding the sword again. The wrist more than the forearm or the elbow. The wrist was just taking a beating just from holding that weight. So, yeah. But I would also like to point out that while we're kind of slipping in imaginary, that's what she said, this sword did not come with a scabbard. And I must admit it is a bit of a drag having a sword this large and not having a sheath to be putting it into. So before I ordered the sword, as a matter of fact, many years ago when I fantasized about getting this sword, I always joked, not joked, but I always said to myself, there's no point to even order this sword unless I have somewhere to put it. So before I ordered the sword, I cleared out a wall in my sword room by moving a dresser that was in there out of the way to another room. And I made up a little wall hanger, made sure that it was into a stud, put some inserts into the jip rack just to be double safe. And yeah, so it had a home waiting for it when it came. And as you can see, it looks very cool on the wall in the corner of my sword room. Anyway, that is about all I have to say so far about the Hanwei Antiqued Claymore. Again, far and above the coolest piece in my collection, the crowning cap to my collection. My collection is very close to being finished. I say that now. I do have one more sword that is in transit, should be here next week. Not going to spoil the surprise, but there will certainly be a review on that. I do have a few more that I need to review in my series that I'm doing here on my collection. But I feel like this is the crowning cap to the collection. I have wanted Franklin for quite a while, and Franklin is now here. So, hope you enjoyed that video, folks. As always, thanks for watching. Bye.